thought you would break. That's the fact nobody wants to say out loud, but it's true. They didn't just test your patience, they pushed you to the edge, convinced that one more shove would silence you forever. And yet, here you are. Not broken, not erased. You're standing in the aftermath, and the silence around you says more than their noise ever could. The universe has shifted, and those who tried to tear you apart are now sitting in the shadows, realizing they lit a fire they'll never be able to control. There's something unsettling about how quiet it gets after the storm. When the dust settles, when the smoke clears, everyone looks around to see what's left. In your case, what's left is you, unshaken, more solid, and carrying a presence they can't explain. That presence is haunting them. It keeps them awake at night, wondering how you survived everything they threw at you. They wanted to see you crawl, but now they have to watch you stand taller than ever, and it eats them alive. Chosen ones, before I go any further, I need to pause for a moment and thank you. Thank you for being here, for carrying this mission with me, and for refusing to fold when life tried to corner you. If you're feeling this message deep in your chest, I ask you to like this video, subscribe, and strengthen this voice we're building together. Because every time you do, it makes this truth harder for the world to ignore and harder for your enemies to hide from. Now, let's get even clearer. This isn't about sympathy. This isn't about sitting in the corner nursing old wounds. This is about revelation. The universe watched what they did to you. It saw the lies, the manipulations, the attempts to humiliate you behind closed doors. And the universe doesn't forget. It has a way of balancing the scales, of dragging hidden deeds into the light where everyone can see them. That's the part they never considered. They thought they were safe in secrecy, but they've triggered something much bigger than themselves. Think of it like this. When pressure builds inside the Earth, it doesn't ask for permission before erupting. It doesn't check who's standing nearby. It just explodes. And that's the kind of energy they've unleashed against themselves by coming after you. They thought they were setting a trap, but what they actually did was crack the ground beneath their own feet. Now, every step they take feels shaky, every move feels watched, and every shadow feels like it's carrying consequences. They tortured you because they believed your silence meant weakness. But silence was never weakness. It was containment. It was the universe holding back until the right moment, building pressure until the fire inside you wasn't just survival. It became exposure. And that exposure doesn't just burn, it reveals. It makes their secrets too loud to hide, their masks too heavy to hold up, their guilt too sharp to swallow. The truth is, they lit this fire with their own hands. They struck the match when they mocked you, when they doubted you, when they tried to suffocate your spirit. But here's the part that terrifies them. The fire didn't consume you. It consumed their illusion of control. Now, they're left choking on the smoke, pretending everything's fine while their world quietly falls apart. This is not revenge. This is alignment. It's the universe showing you that every ounce of pain you endured was not wasted. It turned you into a mirror they can't stand to look at, a reminder of everything they did and everything they can't undo. And that's why they're restless. That's why they whisper behind doors and stare when they think you're not watching. You've become the proof that their cruelty backfired, and now they're haunted by the firestorm they created. So if your enemies are watching this right now, here's the only warning they'll get. Don't bother reaching for a fire extinguisher. This isn't a flame you can put out. This is a burn issued by the universe itself. And once it starts, there's no undoing it. They angered a force far greater than them, and now they're realizing the worst part. They can't control what comes next. And here's the question, chosen ones, are you ready to see what happens when those who tried to torture you end up burning in the very fire they created? This isn't just another message. It's a mirror being held up to everything they did. Every silent battle you endured, and every shift the universe is now unleashing. If you've ever felt like the pressure against you was unfair, if you've ever wondered why the attacks were so relentless, this is the moment where it all starts to make sense. Drop a comment below with the words, "I am chosen," if you can already feel the heat of this revelation. Because when you engage, you don't just listen, you anchor yourself into the energy that's rising right now. And believe me, if you are truly one of the chosen, you'll feel it deep in your chest. You'll recognize the pull to stay until the very end, because every word ahead peels back another layer of what they triggered. They tortured you, they mocked you, and they thought it was over, but it's only just beginning. And now, let's dive into it, step by step. Number 1. They tried to break you for their own entertainment, but the universe kept the receipts. Cruelty is never an accident, it's a choice. And every time they chose to laugh at your pain, they signed their own downfall. They didn't just mistreat you. That word is too soft, too clean. What they did was deliberate. They pushed you down and smirked. They watched you unravel and leaned back like it was a private show. Think about that for a second. They weren't confused. They weren't lost souls just stumbling in the dark. No, they found pleasure in your suffering. Your pain was their performance stage. Every sigh you let out, every tear you wiped away. It was like music to their sick ears. The more broken you looked, the more powerful they felt. But here's the twist that makes the story sting for them. They thought you were their entertainment, when in truth, they were putting on the show. And the audience wasn't you. It was the universe itself. Every time they mocked you, every time they twisted your words, every time they treated you like your soul was cheap, it was being logged. Every laugh at your expense was nothing more than evidence stacked against them. They thought they were pulling the strings, but all along they were tightening the noose around their own necks. Let's be honest, chosen ones often ask, why me? Why did they pick me to torment? Why was my suffering so funny to them? And the answer is brutal, because your spirit shined in ways theirs never could. That glow they couldn't replicate became the very thing they wanted to dim. They didn't want to just silence you, they wanted to erase you. And when they couldn't erase you, they settled for torment, hoping your collapse would validate their emptiness. But emptiness cannot be filled with destruction. You can't pour your darkness into someone else's light and expect it to satisfy you. That's why, no matter how much they fed on your exhaustion, they always came back hungry. That's why the cycle never stopped. They needed your tears like parasites need blood. But here's the thing. Parasites always destroy their host, until the host evolves, grows immune, and suddenly the parasite is left to starve. That's what you became. Immunity, resistance, proof that they couldn't kill what the universe designed to rise. Every insult they threw at you, every humiliation they staged, every whisper behind your back, they thought those were nails in your coffin. But they weren't nails, they were sparks, and sparks don't bury, they ignite. What they lit was not your destruction, but their own undoing. Because the fire they started didn't just sit in silence, it grew, it spread. And now that fire is wild, untamed and merciless, not burning you, but chasing them. Some of you might wonder, but if the universe saw everything, why didn't it stop them? Why wasn't I spared the pain? The truth is chilling but freeing. Sometimes the universe lets the storm rage so that when it passes, the wreckage tells the story better than words ever could. If it stopped them too soon, they'd walk away smug, thinking they'd won. No, the universe let them dig, and dig, and dig, until the grave was so deep that when they finally slipped, nobody could climb down far enough to pull them out. They're not just trapped, they're buried under the weight of their own cruelty. Now, here's the part that really shatters their illusion. They thought your silence was weakness. They thought your stillness was surrender. They never realized silence is sometimes the loudest scream, stillness is sometimes the strongest stance. While you sat there carrying the weight, they believed they had control. What they didn't see was that pressure was transforming you. You weren't breaking, you were compressing, like coal under the earth, preparing to emerge as diamond. And diamonds don't burn out, they outlast the fire. Now imagine their faces when they look at you today. They see the glow, they see the strength, and deep inside they know it was their cruelty that created this version of you. They built their own nightmare with their bare hands. Every cruel word they spoke, it hardened you. Every manipulation they pulled, it sharpened you. Every attempt to crush you, it elevated you. They weren't writing your ending, they were crafting your rebirth. And the worst part for them, they can't stop watching. It's like they're haunted by the very thing they tried to bury. Every time they catch a glimpse of you, it's a reminder that their laughter turned into their curse. Their fun became their downfall. Their entertainment became their punishment. And now they're the ones unraveling piece by piece while you walk forward carrying a fire they'll never be able to put out. Let me put it plain. The universe doesn't issue instant karma because it knows timing is everything. Punishment delayed is not punishment denied. It's punishment perfected. The longer they danced, the deeper they sank. The longer they gloated, the more brutal the fall. And now, every fake smile they wear feels heavy. Every shadow feels like exposure. Every night of sleep feels thin, fragile, hunted by the firestorm they started. So when you look back, chosen ones, don't see yourself as the victim. See yourself as the evidence, proof that cruelty always boomerangs, proof that no weapon of torment can outlast the patience of the universe, proof that your tears were not wasted, they were collected, converted, and set ablaze in a fire that now roars against those who once found joy in your pain. They thought they were breaking you for sport. They thought your suffering was their stage play. But the truth is brutal. The only act they performed was their own destruction, and the curtain is finally falling. Number 2. Your suffering became the evidence that sealed their fate. The universe doesn't punish because of emotion. It punishes because of proof. Every moment of your suffering, every tear shed when no one was watching, wasn't wasted. It wasn't just pain in the dark. It was documentation. The universe doesn't act on impulse. It acts on evidence. And while you were silently carrying the weight, the universe was collecting every lie told about you, every rumor whispered to poison your name, every betrayal slipped behind your back. What looked like silence was really surveillance. They thought they were free to torment you without consequence, but all they were doing was building their own case file, page by page. Silence is not weakness, it is a courtroom where the guilty expose themselves. Think about it. How many times did you sit in your room asking, why do they keep getting away with this? Why does life let them stomp on me while I sit here breaking apart? The chosen ones always ask this question. And the answer is this. The universe wasn't letting them get away with it. It was letting them pile up receipts. It was giving them just enough rope to hang themselves. They weren't escaping judgment. They were marinating in it. Imagine this. A predator thinks the forest is empty while stalking its prey. What it doesn't know is that hidden cameras are everywhere, capturing every step. Later, when the trap closes, that predator's confusion is almost laughable. How did they catch me? I was so careful. But the truth is, the trap was never empty. That's what your enemies don't realize. They thought their fake smiles, their manipulations, their betrayals vanished into thin air. They didn't. They were caught in real time. Every betrayal you endured was a signature they signed on their own sentence. Let's break down another lie they told themselves. They mistook your silence for weakness. They thought the fact you didn't retaliate meant you had no power. But silence in the hands of a chosen one is never weakness. It's restraint. It's composure. It's choosing not to waste energy on revenge, but instead letting the universe build something bigger. Silence was never surrender. It was strategy. And maybe you wondered, why didn't the universe stop them sooner? Why didn't it shut this down before the damage was done? Here's the harsh truth. The universe allowed time. Time for them to correct themselves, time to repent, time to choose a different road. But instead of changing, they doubled down. Instead of stepping back, they pressed harder. Instead of pulling out of the fire, they kept adding fuel. And the universe doesn't step in to save someone from themselves when their choice is destruction. The longer they mocked, the louder their conviction became. Imagine a courtroom where the guilty are so arrogant they keep walking in with more evidence against themselves, thinking no one will notice. That's what your enemies did. Every insult was another exhibit. Every act of cruelty was another witness called to the stand. And while you sat silently, thinking your voice had been stolen, your pain was testifying louder than any words you could have spoken. Here's another metaphor. Picture a scale. On one side sits your tears. On the other side sits their cruelty. Every day you cried, another weight dropped on the scale. And they thought the scale would never tip. But scales don't stay unbalanced forever. Eventually, the weight of your suffering forced the balance to snap, and when it did, it wasn't you who fell, it was them. The verdict is already in motion. Your tears became evidence, your pain became the conviction. They thought silence was the absence of sound, but now it roars in their life like thunder. The very quiet they mocked has turned into the noise they can't escape. You don't even have to raise your voice. The universe is speaking for you. And here's what truly haunts them. They don't get to appeal. This isn't a judgment they can wiggle out of with fake apologies or rehearsed smiles. This isn't something they can bury under new lies or distractions. The verdict is sealed. When the universe closes a case, it doesn't reopen it. And that's the position they're in now, trapped by the very record of their own actions. Now let's talk about the chosen one side of this. Maybe you're asking yourself, was all my suffering really worth it? Did anything good actually come out of it? The answer is brutal but empowering. Yes. Because without your suffering there would have been no evidence. Without your silence there would have been no restraint to prove you didn't stoop to their level. Without your endurance, the universe wouldn't have had the proof it needed to move. Your suffering wasn't a waste, it was the testimony that sealed their fate. Pain doesn't just hurt, it writes, and the story it wrote for you has become their sentence. Imagine a furnace. Metal thrown into it doesn't come out weaker, it comes out purified. That's what happened to you. Your suffering wasn't just survival, it was refinement. It stripped you down, yes, but in doing so, it hardened you, clarified you, made you untouchable. They thought your pain would erase you. Instead, it erased their illusion of control. Now they're the ones haunted by silence. The thunder they hear isn't coming from you. It's coming from the echo of their own cruelty ricocheting back at them. They used to laugh while you cried. Now they cry in secret while you glow. They thought the universe was blind, but the truth is brutal. The universe sees sharper in silence than it does in noise. So understand this, chosen ones, you weren't abandoned in your suffering, you were being positioned. Every breakdown, every lonely night, every wound was evidence collected, evidence that couldn't be denied, couldn't be erased, couldn't be spun into a different story. and that evidence is now the very fire consuming the lives of those who once mocked you. They thought your silence buried you. They never realized it buried them. The universe doesn't move on emotion, it moves on proof, and the proof is undeniable. Your suffering sealed the verdict. Their laughter signed it, and now the thunder of justice is shaking their world in ways they cannot control. Number 3, they cursed themselves by violating what couldn't be broken. When you treat sacred ground like dirt, don't be surprised when the earth swallows you whole. They thought you were just another person to toy with, someone they could push, mock, and discard without consequence. But they couldn't have been more wrong. You were never ordinary. You carried a weight they couldn't see, a presence they couldn't measure, and by laying their dirty hands on you, they weren't just attacking flesh and blood. They were trespassing against something untouchable. Let's put it plain, you became their curse. Not because you fought back with venom, but because the universe doesn't let violations like that slide. Imagine someone spitting on lightning before a storm. They might laugh for a second, but the strike is already on its way. That's what happened when they came against you. They weren't just laughing at you, they were summoning thunder on themselves. And maybe you've asked yourself, why does it feel like my suffering carried so much weight? Why does it feel bigger than me? The answer is brutal but freeing, because it was bigger. You were a living reminder of strength they couldn't destroy. Your endurance, your refusal to turn bitter, your persistence to keep walking even when they wanted you crawling, it turned you into sacred ground. And sacred ground doesn't forgive trespassers. Think of it like stepping into fire barefoot. You can't plead ignorance when your feet are scorched. They knew what they were doing when they mocked you. They knew the games they played with your heart. They knew the damage their lies and manipulations would cause. Yet they pressed on. And now the burn isn't on you. It's on them. Here's the truth they never considered. Curses don't always come from spells or rituals. Sometimes the curse is self-made, summoned by cruelty, ignited by arrogance. By treating you as disposable, they signed their own ruin. By mishandling you, they mishandled the very laws of balance the universe enforces. And the universe always collects. So don't mistake their downfall as coincidence. It's consequence. They thought they could desecrate what was sacred without cost. But the bill has arrived, and it's written in fire. Number 4, their war was never with you. It was with the force behind you. Hating you wasn't their mistake. Thinking they could defeat what backs you, that's what doomed them. They never really hated you. What they hated was the weight you carried. Your honesty revealed their lies. Your presence exposed the shadows they tried so hard to hide. Instead of fixing themselves, they chose the coward's path, to destroy the mirror that reflected their rot. But here's the part they never calculated. You weren't just the mirror. You were the spark, backed by a force far greater than they could handle. Imagine someone swinging a fist at a storm. That's what they did when they came after you. They thought their petty attacks were personal, but in truth, they declared war against the universe itself. And who wins when fragile egos try to fight cosmic law? They don't. They can't. That's why their plans collapse, why their sleep is restless, why every scheme turns into quicksand beneath their feet. Maybe you've asked, why me? Why was I the one they targeted? The answer cuts deep, because your light left them no excuses. It burned through their masks. It stripped away the illusions they clung to. And when people who live on lies are forced to face truth, rage becomes their only weapon. They weren't fighting you. They were lashing out at what your existence made undeniable. Think of it like this. When moths see fire, they can't help but crash into it. No matter how much it burns, they're drawn to it. Your enemies were no different. Your glow pulled them in, but their attempts to extinguish it only sealed their ruin. Every act against you was like signing a contract they didn't read, a contract where the fine print always ends in their defeat. They thought their war was winnable because they mistook you for ordinary, but chosen ones are never ordinary, and the universe doesn't let its warriors fall without consequences for those who struck first. They thought they had power, but what they really had was a death wish disguised as pride. So understand this, their battle wasn't personal, it was suicidal, and in wars against the universe, there's only one ending: they lose. Number 5, the universe delayed on purpose, to build a case they can't escape. Justice delayed isn't justice denied, it's justice perfected. You cried, you begged for the storm to end, and you wondered why nothing stepped in to stop the attacks. The silence hurt worse than the blows. But that delay wasn't neglect, it was strategy. The universe wasn't absent, it was patient. Every insult they spit at you, every betrayal they plotted, every lie they spread was being documented. Piece by piece, the case against them was built so airtight they'd have no way to twist it in their favor. Imagine this: a criminal is caught red-handed but released just long enough to reveal the full extent of their crimes. Why? Because if justice moved too soon, they'd cry victim, play innocent, and bend sympathy toward themselves. That's exactly what your enemies would have done if the hammer had dropped early. So the universe waited. It let them dance, let them laugh, let them bury themselves deeper, until the evidence stacked so high it crushed their excuses. And maybe you asked yourself, why did it have to hurt so long? Why wasn't I rescued sooner? The answer is harsh but freeing, because the longer they performed, the harder the fall. Your pain wasn't ignored, it was recorded. Your silence wasn't wasted, it was weaponized. Every moment you endured became undeniable proof that when the verdict came, it couldn't be overturned. Think of it like a courtroom where the guilty keep walking in with more evidence against themselves, thinking they're clever. They didn't realize every smirk, every manipulation, every scheme was sealing their own fate. And now that judgment is here, there's no appeal, no loophole, no escape route. The fire consuming them now isn't a metaphor, it's real. You can see it in their restless eyes, in their collapsing plans, in the way their blessings turn hollow. They summoned this blaze with their arrogance, and now it's tangible, undeniable, inescapable. They thought the delay meant freedom. But the truth is brutal. It meant the universe was perfecting their downfall. Number 6, you were their test, and they failed it miserably. How someone treats you reveals who they are long before their masks slip. They thought you were just another body to manipulate, another soul to step on, another voice to silence. They misread everything about you. To them, you were disposable, but you weren't random. You were the test they never expected. The universe didn't place you in their path by accident. You were there to reveal what lived inside them when no one was looking, and the truth spilled out fast. Imagine this. A teacher gives a pop quiz without warning. Some students panic, others reveal just how much they've been faking all along. That's what happened when you entered their lives. They didn't know they were being graded, but their cruelty became the answer key, and their answers were ugly. Every lie, every manipulation, every attempt to exploit your kindness was proof that they weren't just failing, they were disqualifying themselves. Maybe you've wondered, why me? Why was I the one chosen as their lesson? The truth is sharp, because you carried light strong enough to expose their darkness. Your presence stripped away excuses. They couldn't hide their true nature when you stood in the room, and instead of correcting themselves, they doubled down, laughing at the pain they caused and patting themselves on the back for it. What they called entertainment was really evidence of failure. They didn't realize the universe was watching the whole time, silent but alert, noting every move. And when judgment came, it wasn't random, it was earned. They failed an exam they didn't even know they were taking. And now the grade is permanent. There's no retest, no do-over, no curve to save them. Think of it like a mirror test. Stand someone in front of a mirror long enough and their real face will eventually appear. You were that mirror. Instead of adjusting, they smashed the reflection. But smashing the mirror doesn't erase the truth. It just scatters it everywhere, impossible to escape. So understand this, you were never their target. You were their opportunity, and because they mishandled you, they mishandled the very test that determined their fate. Number 7. The fire they sparked became the blaze that burns their future. When you curse the innocent, you're not cursing them. You're cursing your own bloodline. They thought every insult, every rumor, every act of cruelty was slowing you down. But the truth is savage. They weren't sabotaging you, they were sabotaging themselves. The fire they lit wasn't burning your path. It was scorching theirs. Every curse they spoke became a seed, and now those seeds are sprouting in their own soil. What they planted for you has come home to harvest them. Imagine this. Someone digs a hole for you in the dark, laughing as they cover it with branches. They wait for you to fall in, but instead they stumble backwards into the very trap they built. That's the image of your enemies right now. They tied the rope for your neck and it snapped back around theirs. And worse, that rope doesn't just grip them. It coils around their legacy, their stability, their children, their lineage. Maybe you've asked yourself, why does their cruelty feel bigger than just me? Why does it seem like it echoes further? The answer is brutal, because actions don't die with the person who commits them. They ripple, they travel through generations. What they thought was a personal attack against you became a generational curse stamped on their own bloodline. The fire they lit was never on your foundation. It was under their own house. This isn't just about the present moment, it's about consequences echoing forward. They mocked you today, but it's their tomorrow that collapses. They whispered against you, but it's their own name that crumbles. They thought they were cutting your future short, but every cut they made bled their own destiny dry. Think of a tree poisoned at the roots. It might look fine for a while, but eventually the rot reaches the branches, then the fruit, then the seeds. That's what their actions did. They poisoned their future while thinking they were poisoning yours. So don't mistake their suffering as random misfortune. It's the echo of their choices, the inheritance of their cruelty. The universe doesn't let curses travel outward without circling back, and the fire they sparked has become the blaze that consumes their future. Number 8. Your tears became weapons that reached realms beyond their control. They mocked your crying, not knowing every tear was a signature on their judgment. They laughed when you wept. They mistook your tears for weakness, for surrender. But what they never understood is that your tears were never wasted. Every drop was a message, a signal the universe couldn't ignore. What looked like breaking was really broadcasting. Your pain wasn't silent. It was louder than any scream, echoing in realms they will never have access to. Imagine this, raindrops hitting the ground one by one. To the ordinary eye, it's nothing but water. But underground, those drops are filling reservoirs, building pressure, preparing for a flood that sweeps everything in its path. That's what your tears did. Every time they rolled down your face, they were filling a reservoir of consequence, and now the dam has broken, but not against you. against them. Maybe you've asked, did my tears even matter? Or did they just disappear into the floorboards? The truth is brutal. They mattered more than you could imagine. Each tear was evidence. Each one carried weight. Adding to the case, the universe was already building against those who hurt you. You weren't falling apart. You were filing charges in silence. Every tear you shed became gasoline poured onto the fire, chasing them now. They mocked you because they thought crying meant defeat. But your weeping wasn't collapse, it was activation. While they heard nothing, the universe heard everything. And unlike human ears, the universe doesn't dismiss pain. It responds. The answers are here now, not softly, but explosively. Their walls are crumbling, their peace is evaporating, and the same tears they ridiculed have now turned into flames they can't outrun. Think of a flare shot into the night sky. To them, it looked like a flicker. To the universe, it was an alarm calling in forces bigger than they could ever fight. That's what your tears did. They summoned a reckoning. So let them choke on the irony. The tears they mocked are now the very reason their world is burning. Number 9. They were warned repeatedly, but their arrogance made them escalate. It wasn't ignorance that doomed them. It was arrogance, knowing they were wrong and doing it anyway. Your enemies weren't clueless. Deep down, they knew exactly what they were doing. The unease in their chest, the restless nights, the flashes of guilt, all of it was the universe whispering, "Stop, turn back, don't do this." But instead of listening, they mocked the warnings. Instead of slowing down, they pressed harder. They weren't stumbling blindly. They were sprinting into destruction with their eyes wide open. Imagine someone ignoring every red light on the highway. Each warning sign blinks, each siren screams, but they grip the wheel tighter and slam the gas. That's what your enemies did. They weren't victims of weakness. They were rebels, fueled by pride. Weakness stumbles into mistakes. Arrogance stares at truth and says, "I don't care. I'll do it anyway." That's the spirit they carried. Maybe you've asked yourself, didn't they feel guilty? Didn't they know they were wrong? The answer is chilling. Yes, they knew. But guilt only works on hearts that want to change. Instead, they took every warning as a challenge. Every chance to stop became another excuse to escalate, and with each step, they dug their hole deeper until climbing out was no longer possible. When mercy is mocked, it turns into judgment. The universe doesn't cut people off without first giving them chances. It's patient, but not blind. It allows room to shift, to repent, to correct. But when those chances are spit on, when grace is mocked, when warnings are treated like jokes, that patience eventually runs out. And once it runs out, there's no reset button, no escape clause. Think of a rope handed to someone sinking in quicksand. They can grab it, pull themselves out, and survive. But if they use that same rope to pull others down with them, the rope eventually gets yanked away. That's what happened here. They were given lifelines, they were given ways out, and instead of grabbing them, they wrapped them around their pride. So now the outcome is sealed. Their fall isn't accidental, it's chosen. They mocked the warnings, and now they're swallowed by the consequences. Number 10. Your very being triggered the countdown to their collapse. Patience isn't endless. It's a ticking clock. And once it strikes zero, no one can stop the explosion. You aren't wired like everyone else. There's something in you that carries weight, a kind of built-in threshold that the universe monitors closely. They thought they could keep pushing, keep mocking, keep crossing lines without consequence. What they didn't realize is that your spirit carries alarms. And once their cruelty passed that hidden boundary, those alarms went off. Not in whispers, but in thunder. Imagine this, a bomb hidden inside a throne. At first, it looks like a seat of power. They lounge in it, smug, convinced they're untouchable. But every smug laugh, every cruel act, every lie fed into the timer, counting down to 0. By the time they realized what they'd done, it was already too late. The explosion had begun. That's what they sat on, a throne disguised as a trap. Maybe you've wondered, why did the universe wait so long? Why didn't it act the first time they hurt me? The truth is, your patience was part of the test. You were wired to endure, to absorb, to hold back longer than most. But patience isn't infinite. There's a breaking point, a spiritual threshold written into your very being. Once crossed, consequences activate automatically. Not because you demanded it, but because balance demanded it. They mistook your silence for endless tolerance. What they didn't see was the countdown running in the background. Think of a dam holding back water. At first it seems solid, unshakable, but every insult, every betrayal, every attack was another crack forming in the wall. The pressure built slowly, silently, and when the wall finally burst, it wasn't just a leak. It was a flood that swept them off their feet. That's what's happening now. The judgment they face isn't random. It's not symbolic. It's the natural detonation of everything they set in motion when they crossed the line with you. They thought they were in control, but in reality, they were the ones sitting on the timer. And now, time's up. Number 11. The mockers of your tears will soon beg for the mercy they once denied you. They laughed at your breakdowns, but laughter dries fast when the fire is on their doorstep. They mocked you when you cried. They whispered, pointed fingers, and treated your breakdowns like a spectacle. Your pain was their entertainment, your struggles their private comedy. But now, as the universe begins unraveling their illusions, they'll find themselves in the same pit they once shoved you into. And here's the brutal truth. In that pit, they'll look back at you. They'll remember your endurance, your strength, and your connection to something greater than them. Suddenly, the same person they mocked will be the one they wish could intercede on their behalf. Imagine this. A man drowning laughs at someone learning how to swim. He mocks the splashing, the flailing arms. But when the current grabs him, when water fills his lungs, who does he cry for? The swimmer he once ridiculed. That's the position your enemies are stepping into now. They laughed when you struggled to breathe, but when it's their turn, they'll wish you'd throw the rope. Maybe you've asked yourself, will I ever see them regret what they did? Will they ever feel the weight of my pain? The answer is yes, but not in the way you think. Regret will come not as apology, but as desperation. They'll feel the burn of consequences and remember that the one they tried to break carried access to strength they could never touch. The same tears they mocked became the gates they can't walk through. And here's what makes it final. By the time they ask, the door will already be closed. Not because of bitterness on your part, but because the universe itself shut it. Opportunities don't stay open forever. Grace has an expiration date when it's mocked. They wasted their chances when they laughed at your pain, and now the silence they once ridiculed has turned into a wall they can't climb. So let them beg, let them remember, but understand this, their regret isn't your burden. The universe has spoken, and what's sealed cannot be reopened. Number 12. They tried to play God in your life. Now their throne is turning to dust. Control isn't love, it's tyranny in disguise, and tyrants always fall. Their abuse was never just cruelty, it was strategy. They wanted you small, powerless, doubting yourself. Every insult, every manipulation, every backhanded comment was designed to chip away at your confidence until you needed them to tell you who you were. Why? Because control was their drug. They needed to sit on a false throne in your life, dictating your worth like they were the final authority. But here's the truth they never accounted for. The universe doesn't share its throne. When they tried to crown themselves as your source of validation, they weren't just mistreating you, they were committing treason against balance itself. That's why their influence is crumbling now. The mask is slipping, their fake kingdom is collapsing, and the same power they flaunted has turned into quicksand beneath their feet. Imagine this. A puppeteer pulling strings, convinced the puppet can't move without them. But one day, the strings snap, and the puppet stands tall on its own. Suddenly, the puppeteer looks foolish, powerless, exposed. That's exactly what's happening with them. They built their identity on controlling yours, and now that you've risen, their illusion has shattered. Maybe you've wondered, why did they need me broken? Why wasn't my strength enough for them? The answer is brutal, because your strength made them irrelevant. They couldn't handle a version of you that didn't bow. They needed you dependent, so their false power could feel real. But dependency was the leash they tried to keep you on, and once it snapped, they lost everything. The throne they built on your pain is now sinking into the ashes they created. And that's the final blow. Their empire of manipulation isn't just damaged, it's collapsing in real time. Their words no longer hold weight, their masks no longer fool anyone, their throne no longer exists. What they fought so hard to protect, control, is the very thing slipping through their fingers. They tried to play God in your life. Now they're learning the hard way. False thrones don't last. Number 13. The fire devouring them wasn't lit by you. They lit it against themselves. Survival is louder than revenge because silence carries a fire words can't put out. You didn't retaliate, you didn't drag their name through the mud, you didn't curse them, plot against them, or fight on their level, you simply survived. And that survival was enough to send shockwaves into the unseen. What they mistook for weakness was the very thing that triggered a storm they can't outrun. They thought your silence meant safety, but silence is never safe when it belongs to a chosen one. Silence is an alarm. Silence is the trigger. Imagine a minefield, quiet, unseen, waiting. They danced on it, laughing, convinced there would be no consequences. But now the explosions are erupting, one after another, not because you pushed a button, but because they stomped where they had no business stepping. Maybe you've asked yourself, if I didn't fight back, then why are they collapsing now? The answer is simple but brutal. The fire chasing them isn't yours. It's theirs. It's the harvest of their rebellion. They mocked your tears. They fed off your pain. They thought your restraint meant immunity. But your silence was holy, untouchable, set apart. And when silence is broken, it doesn't whisper, it roars. The flames they see now are not the reflection of your anger. They're the reflection of their own sins burning back at them. Think of it like standing in front of a mirror with fire at your back. The flames don't belong to the mirror, but the mirror makes them undeniable. You were that mirror. By surviving, by refusing to strike back, you forced them to face the inferno they built with their own hands. And now it's consuming them, their peace, their stability, their fake blessings. So understand this, you don't have to carry guilt for their collapse. You didn't start this fire, they did. You didn't throw gasoline, they poured it themselves. And now every spark they created has turned into a wildfire, tearing through their lives. They provoked something bigger than you, and the flames answering them now will not be silenced. Number 14. They tried to bury you, not knowing you were a seed built to rise. They mistook your grave for an ending, but seeds always break the dirt and reach for the sky. They thought it was over for you. They saw your tears and clapped, celebrating what they thought was your collapse. To them, every breakdown looked like the final chapter. Every silence looked like surrender. But the joke's on them. Chosen ones don't die in pain. They transform in it. They weren't burying you. They were planting you. Imagine this, a seed pressed deep into the earth. To outsiders, it looks buried, suffocated, forgotten. But underneath, unseen, roots are forming, life is building, and power is gathering. That was you. Every betrayal became fertilizer. Every insult became rain. Every dark night became soil rich enough to grow something unstoppable. While they mocked, you were taking root. While they laughed, you were preparing to bloom. Maybe you've asked yourself, why did I have to lose so much before I gained anything? The answer is raw but empowering, because loss cleared the ground. You can't grow in soil cluttered with weeds. The universe allowed things to be stripped away so that when your rise came, nothing could choke it. They celebrated a funeral, but what they really witnessed was a resurrection. Now look at you, shining with fire they can't extinguish, blooming in ways they never saw coming. They thought they'd destroyed you, but what they really did was trigger your rebirth. The more they tried to bury you, the deeper your roots went. The deeper your roots went, the higher your growth became. And now they're forced to watch what they planted rise taller than they could ever reach. Think of their shock. They threw dirt on your name, only to see you sprout through the very ground they cursed. They didn't bury a failure, they planted a legend. And legends don't stay underground. They rise, they bloom, they burn with a fire no enemy can snuff out. And so, chosen ones, here's the truth. Every insult, every betrayal, every attempt to bury you only proved what the universe already knew. You were never the victim, you were always the fire. Their downfall isn't your burden, it's their consequence. And your rise isn't luck, it's destiny taking its rightful place. If this message resonated with you, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and drop 77 in the comments to anchor this energy. Share